What's going on, Digital Wildcatters? Welcome to another week of BDE with yours truly, Frack Slap and Nimble Fatty, aka Chuck Yates. Chuck, what's up?
Dude, I hate to do this, but let's go ahead and do this. Story number one. Time Magazine has named their 108th person of the year. They started in 1927. It's your boy, Elon Musk. Collin, fanboy away.
Did you see how he didn't even want to talk in the intro? He was just like, hate to do this, but we got to do this, just because he wanted to set up the Elon fanboy session of the show.
I'm glad I have a Diet Coke. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point. We were talking about this morning, that time, what I like about having Chuck on the show is that he's old, so he'll go back and remember and reflect throughout history and think about everyone else that has been Time Person of the Year. Brought up a great point that there's never been anyone on the cover of Time Magazine that is pro energy, and I thought that to be a pretty interesting thought, and brought up my next question: is Elon Musk an energy persona? And you were talking about there's been a couple of automobile type figures on the show. So is he automobile or is he energy? What's your take? I know my take. What's your take?
So this is what's interesting. So if you look back, Walter Chrysler was actually the second winner in 1928, Man of the Year, obviously the namesake of Chrysler Motors. I'm blanking on the guy's name. Oh, Harlow Curtis was CEO of GM in the 50s when they had their first $1 billion net profit. They were almost there, not because of the freedom of the automobile and transportation. They were all almost there because of business leaders. And you kind of get the vibe that Elon Musk being there is not so much maybe transportation guy, not so much energy guy, but just being the richest guy in the world, business type leaders. So I'm going to give you a push. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think when people talk about Tesla, you have some people like Chamath, was all over CNBC last year saying that, hey, Tesla's not a car company, it's an energy company. And essentially the way that they back this claim is by saying that Tesla is a distributed energy company and that they're going to have all of this battery capacity distribution through their cars, which is actually, Ford's doing this with their F-150 Lightning, where it has bidirectional transmission from the batteries. So if the grid goes down, you can use the electricity that's stored in your battery to power your home. So it can help with some load balance on the grid. But at the end of the day, it's a car, right? And I don't think that Tesla's an energy company. And then, as far as putting Elon as Time, Person of the Year, whether you like Elon or not, he has a massive impact on the world and very influential person. I wouldn't say the most powerful person. I think most powerful person is probably Mark Zuckerberg, just with the amount of data that he has. But I think that Elon Musk is the most influential person in the world. And, even I saw a tweet, I can't remember who it was from today, but they're an Elon hater. And they're like, hey, one thing he's done is he's been able to land rockets. He's like, and that's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. It was Max. I think it was Max. Yeah, that said that. But I think that whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny that he has a pretty big influence on the world, and that's enough to win Person of the Year in my mind.
I'm the video genius behind all these wonderful clips we played during the show, but today we're going to go old school with the chalkboard. So when you look at the Time Person of the Year, like I said earlier, 1927, the first winner, Charles Lindbergh. There have been 108 selections. 11 of those have been classes of people. So think like the American soldier, the whistleblowers, 2 inanimate objects, the computer and the endangered planet Earth from 1988. We ought to go read that article and see how many years we had to live back in 88. But what I did in a very unscientific study, because this is all me, I looked at each one of these 108 selections, and I said, from the moment they won the award for the rest of their lives, were they winners or losers? Actually, 33 losers out of that. And let me give you a funny example of one of those. Winston Churchill actually won the award twice. So the first time he wins it in 1940, I give him the win, right? Because he is arguably as important as the American soldier in winning World War II from that moment on, right? He then turns around and wins it in 1949, and he's also named the person of the half century there. He resigns from office in 1955 with the lowest approval ratings ever. So we have some split stuff on that.
No one loves you forever.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't stay on top.
Exactly. But to go back to your original point about energy, when you look at the winners, we've had Mohammed Mossadegh, if I pronounce that right. He was the leader of Iran that kicked out BP and nationalized the oil fields in Iran. 2 years later, he got booted from office. So he actually got the loss for that. You have Faisal, who was the king of Saudi Arabia during the embargo, who won it. Like I said earlier, you had the endangered earth, you had the whistleblowers. So maybe that's a negative story because Sharon Watkins was Enron. And then you had Greta. I mean, you've never had a positive person on energy win this. And the reason I bring that up is we sit here and feel so persecuted because it's the liberal media that comes after us. Time Magazine has not been the liberal bastion the whole time. I mean, people in the 30s and 40s accused it of being way too pro-business. And still, we've never had a positive energy person win Man of the Year. When last week we talked about the East Texas oil field helped us win World War II because of that. So that's some perspective when we think about energy advocacy. We've always sucked at this.
Yeah. And I saw some chatter on Twitter online that people were blaming Mark Benioff, who, if you don't know Mark, here's a picture of him. He's the founder of Salesforce and recently bought Time. I think he bought Time last year or maybe the year before. And he's also vested in Elon Musk companies. And so people are like, oh, he's just using Time as a platform to put Elon Musk up there. And I'm like, Elon Musk doesn't need any more of a platform. Like, he's got Twitter. That's all. That's all he needs. But
boy, I'm the richest man in the world, but that Time Magazine cover really put me over the edge. Yeah. But, you know, that's actually been an interesting point about the Man of the Year is historically they've always said the person that has the most impact, positive or negative. So Hitler won it. Ayatollah Khomeini won it. But what they found were subscriptions went down, particularly when it was anti-American type folks, that 9/11 happens and arguably bin Laden was the most influential. They give it to Giuliani.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you imagine Time putting a figure like Hitler on the front of it in today's day and age? Like,
yeah, no, crazy. Like Fauci.
Canceled.
Imagine if they'd put Fauci. Well, I mean, you could make a case that Fauci was the most influential person this year.
Yeah, you could. But I mean, Fauci has some bootlickers that like him, so they would.
Yeah,
you know, they wouldn't get canceled over that.
Snoopy wouldn't have liked that.
So, what do we got?
All right, next? Story number 2. All right, we got bonus season. Collin, what would you do if you won $75,000?
If I won $75,000, I don't know what I would do.
I know exactly what
would I do?
I wrote it right here. I'm guessing you'd buy 6 Bitcoin miners for the house.
That's not unreasonable.
Send pictures of that to Bomber.
Yeah, that's not unreasonable to think that I would do that. 6 is probably a little too much for the house, but you know, maybe 35 grand for 3 miners, and then the other 30
down payment on an F-150.
Yeah, I'll get my F1. Yeah, I'll get the double stack to piss off Bomber.
Well, if you worked for Jeffery Hildebrand, you'd get to make that choice. He's handing out to all Hillcorp employees that have been there more than 6 years, $75,000. On top of that, employees are also getting to direct 25 grand to the charity of their choice. What do you think about this? What are you hearing out there?
I see Tim and Stephanie in the background over here like, damn, dog, why the fuck do we work at Digital Wildcat if we need to go work at Hillcorp and get us some $75,000 bonuses? Look, Hillcorp's famous for this, right? I mean, they've always taken care of their employees when the market allows. But, with that said, I was talking to some Hillcorp folks last year and it's like, hey, you guys working remote? What are y'all doing as the pandemic is happening? Like, no, Hildebrand's like, hey, you want a fucking job? We're fighting for our lives right now. You get in the office and work. And so that's what's expected of them. And, Hillcorp's always been known for doing more with less. And that means that their employees bust their ass. And so that's why he takes care of them. And, they've always been, ever since I've been in the oil and gas industry, I've known that Hillcorp takes care of their employees and gives them huge bonuses like that. So one, good for them, but it's deserved. They earn it.
So what I'm hearing, I talked to a headhunter this morning, upstream, they're talking 5 to 7% raises as opposed to 0 to 3% stuff, talking retention bonuses. Midstream is kind of similar. Oil field service, no fucking way. I mean, just bonuses are off the table.
Someone that came up through the ranks of oilfield service, it pisses me off so bad that OFS just gets no love, gets no love at all, and never will, because E&Ps will always have downward pressure on pricing for them. And so it's just like, hey, you're lucky you have a job. I feel it in my heart
I'm gonna just go ahead and throw some gasoline right on this fire. I hear investment banking bonuses are going to be through the roof this year. That's the rumor on the street. But
the NBA boys are going to get paid for sure.
Well, one last thing though on this point, I was Montrose Lane last week at a advisory board meeting, so they had all the companies in, and we were talking about this very issue. Salary inflation, recruiting talent, and all the stuff you're hearing about. And one of the things I brought up, and I'm going to give a speech on this early next year, and so I'll flesh this out more. But if you look at the data, 65% of people that work at their job are dissatisfied. 12% are physically trying to leave, shooting out resumes, etc. And it costs about 1.5 times somebody's salary when somebody leaves. That's replacement costs, disruptions to business and all. And that's just scratching the surface. I think we've all had an amazing amount of mental health type issues that we've had to deal with that were happening, I think, before the pandemic, but the pandemic really accelerated that. So I think an important issue going forward is cash compensation, but it's also being able to provide emotional support and emotional security for your employees. And that's going to be a key thing in terms of retention and recruitment going forward. And I know I said that much more squishy than you normally talk about, but you're always a big fan of talking about the environment around here and how culture is important.
Yeah, culture is everything, and taking care of your team's everything, right? And so I agree with you 100%. It's not just monetary benefits. It's, how much support can you give to the people around you as well. Hey, Chuck, we had a comment on Twitter from Eric Bockenman. He took a screenshot of you holding up the chalkboard. He said a chalkboard, right on brand, nimble fatty. I think the view looks better with chalkboard in front of Chuck's face.
I have a face for podcasting.
All right. Next story. Let's go over to some oil and gas M&A. All right, Chuck. Your friends over in the private equity world over at EnCap have merged Advanced Energy Partners and Ameridev 2, both Delaware Basin producers, in a deal valued at $4 billion. According to Reuters, the Ameridev management team, led by CEO Parker Reese, will run the show. What do you think, Chuck? Good deal or bad deal?
All right. I got to get back on my soapbox, talk about this. We know about the whole Smashco phenomenon, right? Private equity smash companies together. They go out to investors and they talk about G&A savings, strategic fit, all that. I've said on this podcast, I've said on my podcast, I'll say it again right here. It's always bullshit when that happens. What you're really doing when you do that is, one, you just look like you're taking action, right? That's half the job to your investors. Well, we're taking action, right? But the second thing about it is you're burying losers. So if you have a fund with 15 investments, 5 of those are 4x, 5 of those are 2x, and 5 of those are 0. If you look at the whole fund, that's a 2x fund, right? If you take all the zeros and merge it with the 4x's, you will then have 10 companies with 2x. It's a 2x fund. The investors get the same amount of money. Investors 99.9% of the time will go, oh, we want 10 investments that are all 2x. That's less volatile. And you're like, no, I just shoved a loser and a winner together. So that's what they're doing. That being said,
It's math.
that being said, I don't think that's what EnCap's doing here. EnCap's putting these two companies together because, as we've talked about, the M&A market's tough out there. There aren't a lot in the way of cash buyers. The only way you're going to get out of these things is ultimately through the public market and stocks. So putting these companies together gives them size to be able to take it public. They can merge with a SPAC. They're potentially going to get bought. If they get bought with somebody, they're going to have to take that person's stock. But that's what this is leading to. And then when you get the public stock, as we've talked about on this podcast, you're dribbling that out kind of over time. So this is trying to hit the hole in 2 putts instead of make it in 1.
Got you. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a ton of consolidation over the last year, right? It makes sense that you see the internal consolidation between portfolio companies as well. How did the teams like when this happened? I mean, is it usually, I imagine there's a bunch of riff between the teams and who actually takes control?
Well, there are degrees. So one being, it's like a tie. A tie is like kissing your sister. You get that from generally the winning team.
We just made the show weird.
That's an old sports quote. Come on, man. I didn't make that up. I forget who said that. Anyway, but so the winning team doesn't like to do it. It's a pain in the ass. You're merging land files, accounting files. You're screwing with a whole bunch of stuff. But they're getting to keep their job, keep their equity in the company. And then the teams that are getting run off hate it. I mean, they've lost their job. Usually you get screwed on your equity, but quite frankly, your equity is not worth anything or you wouldn't be getting run off. So it's not pleasant for anyone involved. And just as someone that had to do it before, kind of sucks being the private equity guy too. It's no fun for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving out of oil and gas news, we had some pretty terrible news over the weekend with a tornado, which was, from what I heard, the first ever quad state tornado. So it passed through four states. Tell me, let's talk about this a little bit first. Our condolences to all the families and lives lost. It's just terrible when, being in disaster zones between Hurricane Harvey and Ida and New Orleans. I mean, it's just devastating when you see that. But online, everyone starts politicizing the tragedy. I mean, as it's happening, did you see this happening on Twitter?
Yeah, no, I was watching it, and you look, and I think at this point 90 people are reported having been killed in this, and there are at least 100 or more that are unaccounted for. So that number is going to go up. And you hear the story about the candle factory and the Amazon service center and the nursing home in Arkansas that get hit. And you're right. Politicians went quick to blaming global warming, but let's think about this kind of on 2 fronts. This is a bad tornado. It's the worst tornado since the tri-state tornado in 1925, which killed thousands of people. So if you think about it, we're having a tornado this bad 1 every 96 years. So, okay, tell me how that's global warming.
Let's bring up this tornado chart.
And then here's just the flat out data. I mean, basically all the politicians say this is what we need to expect. These are bad tornadoes, extreme tornadoes. The measurement, I think, is called F3.
Yeah, F3 and over.
And over. That doesn't look like, to me, they're going up. In fact, that looks like the number of them have actually gone down over time. Worst case, they've stayed flat. So I don't even see how that fits the data, particularly in a world where we're supposed to live about the science.
Yeah. Well, I think if we've learned anything over the last 2 years is that no one gives a shit about data or statistics and we don't make decisions or judgments based off of that. And so I just think, one, I think that you're a sorry person if actually this lady that was going viral on Twitter for politicizing the tornadoes, I sent her a message and invited her onto the podcast to talk about oil and gas and climate change and fracking and its impact on tornadoes. And she hasn't answered me, of course. But it's just like one, like why even do it? Like people are hurting. You think like you get your house destroyed, the first thing you want to do is come out of your house and see someone bashing, why this is happening. No one gives a fuck why. Just help fix their life and the issues that they're facing immediately. But then to conflate weather events with climate on top of that and just sound like a dumbass is, just kind of salt in the wound. Like this is my thing, is that you can't have a tornado anymore. You can't have a forest fire. You can't have hurricanes. You can't have snow, rain without it being climate change. Like people act like weather just doesn't exist and that it hasn't existed. Weather events haven't existed for the entirety of this planet. And it's frustrating and exhausting.
Well, and I could even live with this tornado is caused by global warming. If you want to say that, that's great. You need to preface it with, oh, by the way, we've had fewer tornadoes, fewer hailstorms this year than at any other time in history. I mean, give us kind of all the data. You're right. It does not lead to the discourse. It doesn't lead to any science. It doesn't lead to any acceptance or path forward if you're going to cherry pick data and just throw stones.
G.W. Goldman said, "Now, Chuck, if your data doesn't fit my narrative, it's wrong." And that's exactly how the world operates today.
I'm not sure what fits GW, but
yeah, I'm not sure what GW's narrative is.
Speaking of the tie and kissing your sister, no,
yeah, that is GW's narrative.
I'm kidding, GW. We love GW here at Digital Wildcatters.
All right,
big fans.
Go into our unappreciated story of the week.
How do you know what's good for me? That's my opinion!
All right, Collin.
Or you're not going to address it? You just played the wrong clip.
No, you set me up for that because see, it says right here on Run of Show, it says right there, that's my opinion. Because I'm about to tell you that
it does not. It says the unappreciated story of the week, and then you played my opinion. But I digress. Go ahead.
I like that's my opinion. That's my opinion. First podcast. I mean, literally 72 hours after I sent you the text of, "Hey, dude, you want my podcast?" It was up. Me, BRV, and Shale Unikitty are talking about investing in oil and gas. I made a very impassioned plea that beta is what matters, that alpha is really hard to do in oil and gas. And let's look at some data.
Let's look at some data.
Let's go back to the chalk. So, Collin, when we look in the past year, WTI, the spot price is up 171%. I've never thought you should use the spot price in valuing an oil and gas company, even though the market seems to do that. I think you need something longer dated. So let's look at the 4-year strip. It's up 142%. When you look at the majors, they have a range of up 18% to up 47% for an average of, call it 25%. When you look at the large caps, they average 129%, but one of them was only up 18%. Another one was up 400%. When you look at the small caps, they averaged 123% up. One was down 62%. The high was up 363%. My point is choosing those stocks, figuring out which one's going up, which one's going down. It's just freaking hard. And look at where these averages shook out. If you would have just invested in oil, i.e. the beta, you would have done better. And beta, the oil, is actually the asset you need to diversify your portfolio. It's transportation fuel, right? Which is in effect GDP. I've talked about it a million times. Amazon stock does not run like that. Those trucks do not run everywhere except with cheap oil and cheap gasoline. So that's number one. Number two, oil has always been the best inflation hedge out there. You look at it's outperformed gold in terms of tracking inflation in the US dollar. So you want to own oil straight. So that's my opinion. I'm right. Beta matters. Unless you're Dan Pickering or Paul Sankey, don't choose stocks. Go invest in the commodity.
But that's always been my problem, is that there's too much agency risk with, if I'm bullish on oil and gas, going through public equities isn't the best way to get exposure to that, right? And there's all different types of variables. What does their hedge book look like? How efficient are they as operators? And a lot of things are out of my control. Like, I don't know shit about that E&P and how they're actually going to perform. I just want access to the underlying commodity. But then the problem is, as someone like me, how do I get access to the underlying commodity? Well, I can either go buy and operate wells, which I've done that, lost my ass on that. I don't want to do that again. I can buy futures.
That would be alpha, because you bought certain wells.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
You can access futures, but for the average person that just wants, and you saw this last year, oil goes negative, and all the retail, all the Robinhood traders, they start piling into USO. And we all know, that is not a great vehicle to make that, to put money in and have direct correlation with oil prices. So yeah, that's there's just not a lot of ways to play that if you're not an institutional investor.
Yeah, unless you can trade on the NYMEX. You're right about that. I think we've seen two big decouplings on that front. One, institutional investors believe that oil price is going to be fixed at 60 for the rest of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the optionality that you would get in a stock price because oil might run to 100, that's not there anymore. So part of that is the reason from the decoupling of oil prices and stock performance. The second thing that we've talked about a million times on here is when energy transition starts happening, you're not oil price anymore. You're wind farms, your solar farms, your carbon projects and all that. And so it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. All right. Round out this week. Let's get into our favorite segment, Finger of the Week.
And those savings are starting to reach drivers. Now, today, the average price you're paying here in Kansas City is below $2 a gallon, $3 a gallon. It's down to $2.90 a gallon, 20% down from a month ago. Nationally, prices are down 7 cents a gallon and continue to.
Our boy Tim brought up a good point. Like, we can't hear those videos on our side when they play. And Tim was watching. He's like, you can just tell he doesn't know what he's saying without even hearing it.
The shocking upset this week.
Yeah, GW said, is it Elizabeth Warren again? She lost her reign, had 3 weeks in a row of being Finger of the Week, which honestly, it's going to be hard to beat that moving forward in the future. But she lost it this week.
Our boy Brandon might be up to it.
Brandon. Yeah, Brandon could do it for sure.
I mean, how ridiculous is this? You've seen a blip down in gasoline prices of 7 cents. I mean, that could mean that a refinery shut down for maintenance work. I mean, 7 cents is nothing. Yet that is the talking point out there in terms of, I am saving you, America, for 7 cents a gallon.
Yeah, that's why I can never be a politician, because I can't get up there and just bullshit someone like that, knowing well that it's not making a difference.
Nor can you be a private equity fund
manager.
So we'll do that.
An honorary mention this week is California Governor Gavin Newsom. He's moving forward with plans to decommission California's last clean nuclear power plant, Diablo Canyon, which powers 3 million homes, or roughly 10% of California's electricity output. It's a big Finger of the Week, man. You can't demonize hydrocarbons and then decommission your nuclear base load. I mean, this guy loves hydrocarbons, right? And they're just going to keep importing coal and nat gas and oil and doing things that are counter productive to what they're actual, what they're saying, what they're telling the public.
You can do it when you know the governor's mansion's not going to be cut off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly it. So, hey, Collin, real quick before we go, I got nothing but great feedback on the shale video documentary that you guys did. It was really good. Give us a story from Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, so we went there and we did the premiere last Wednesday with Toby and Toby Rice from EQT and Larry Kane, and shout out to those guys for making it happen. Shout out to Basil and Zimmy for actually shooting it and producing it. That thing was months in the making, and everyone's like, oh, y'all got to tell these stories all over, and we want to, but also it's like a shit ton of work to put that together. So we got it up on our YouTube now, so if you haven't checked it out, go watch it. Go to Digital Wildcatters. It should be on the front page. You can see it's called American Shale, A New Hope. Really great story, 15 minutes. It's pretty funny. Someone asked me before the premiere, they said, hey, is this family friendly? Can the kids watch it? And I was like, yeah, sure. And we're sitting there during, after the premiere. It's me and Toby and Larry, and we're doing a Q&A, and they have glass windows on their wall. And this guy walks out of a liquor store next door, and he's pissed off at the cashier, some crackhead. And he's like, fuck you. And Toby's talking, and Toby just smirks. And I was like, oh, yeah, that definitely picked up on the mics. And so whoever I told that it was family friendly, I apologize. I thought it was family friendly. I can't control what angry people at the liquor store are doing.
Children need positive role models and negative role models that can be corrected.
We had the contrast between the two. So yeah, if you guys haven't checked that out, go check it out on YouTube. And also make sure to subscribe to the BDE newsletter on digitalwildcatters.com. And we will catch you guys next week at Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. Central.